Hi, this is Trevor, and welcome back to our weekly Card of the Week challenge. We've been working through the Rider-Waite Tarot deck, and I have put aside the cards that we've covered already, and I'm about to shuffle the cards, and we will see what our Card of the Week is. There's been some interesting new developments around my work. I'm looking at some different ways of how I can offer what I do, and one of those things is the aspect of some restaurant readings. And I had my start reading in restaurants way back in 1982, both through the Chocolate Shop restaurant, which was a very popular venue for readings in Winnipeg, and then moving on to a place that was called the East Side Exchange. So those first 13 years that I spent reading in restaurants were a tremendous training ground because I had to read for a very diverse amount of clients, and I had to offer readings in a very short period of time, much like psychic fairs. So most of my work I really prefer to be doing on an appointment basis, and that's through Elemental Book and Curiosity Shop. But actually, in response to people who've been wanting me to work in some different ways, I now have the additional feature of being able to offer some group readings at a very, very comfortable and great restaurant here in Winnipeg called Charisma of India. It's an East Indian buffet, and you can arrange that and find out more information by visiting my website at trevorsense.com, as well as how to access me for Skype readings, which is a new aspect as well. That's offered for some of my distant clients. But enough about all that. Let's get into our card of the week, and I'm cutting the cards. And what do we have? Okay. The Nine of Pentacles. Beautiful card, and rich in detail. And this is, again, why I always enjoy working predominantly with the Rider-Waite Tarot deck. Pamela Coleman-Smith was such a gifted illustrator, and working with the guidance of Arthur Edward Waite, they were drawing on a lot of Western esoteric symbolism. There's a couple of key things in the Nine of Pentacles I oftentimes like to point out. One, the figure is standing in a vineyard. There's grapes growing in the background. There's a little snail in the corner of the card, and the bird on her wrist is actually a hooded falcon. She's wearing a protective glove, and these were hunting birds. So a couple of things that the card evokes. Well, for one thing, it's a 9. Nines are a state of near completion. When we look at 10s as being the fulfillment, the culmination of lessons in that element, I oftentimes say 9s are like the pause on the threshold. It's like when you're moving, that last walk back through the house where you make sure that you've brought the things you need with you, and you look at the things that you can lay aside, right? And also there's patterns. It's interesting that in the 3s, we see the beginning of a pattern. In the 6s, we see the kind of modification or adjustment of a pattern. And then 9s are sort of like where we can look at those patterns and say, do I want to leave this running in the background? Do I want to let this continue to be sort of a mode of operation? Or is it maybe time to shut that pattern down, to say, here's what I've learned from it? So it is that sense of near completion that's going on. And in the Nine of Pentacles, we're working with the earth element, and that has a lot to do with our sense of what has worth and has value. So it can certainly have to do with our material possessions and our wealth, but it also has a great deal to do with what has worth and is worthwhile on other levels. So back to the vineyard. You have to know, if you're cultivating for wine, when it is time to harvest the grapes. And the Nine of Pentacles is something that oftentimes suggests that we've been kind of coasting along in a particular pattern, but sooner or later things either have to evolve, or like the grapes, they wither on the vine. I also think the beautiful imagery of the falcon is important, because these are hunting birds that are raised from hatchlings, and at first you're feeding them just as the mother bird would do. You're building a bond with that. And then there comes a point where you let it fly on a tether, because at that point you don't want it to fly away. But sooner or later, you have to, after all of that work, take the risk of letting it hunt freely. The bird is hooded in the card, so it is not aware of its freedom. And just as you cover a canary's cage, sometimes to kind of quiet it up, they would put a hood on the falcon so that it would not fly. But then releasing it, taking that hood off, there's going to be that opportunity for it to soar. Now, it may not come back. And some people think that that has to do with that saying, if you love something, set it free. And if it comes back, it's yours. I've never entirely really liked that saying. I find it a bit questionable. If it comes back, that's nice, but it doesn't mean it's yours. It means that you've developed a rapport or a bond with something. But in the case of that falcon, if you don't let it fulfill its potential, it's not going to survive. That bird can't go on just having the squirrel meat you're feeding it by hand. You have to release that potential. And I think the Nine of Pentacles talks about that. And that little snail in the corner, well, you have to know when you're raising grapes, when you have to pick the snails off the vines, so that they don't spoil things. So this is a card that's oftentimes associated with luxury, kind of a good, comfortable state that things are in. But we can't get complacent. We can't rest on our laurels. We have to think beyond that immediate state of luxury. We have to look at what we're doing with our abundance. And I think that's a big question these days. In some perspectives, maybe we've all been a little spoiled in terms of the abundance we have already. And there's a great deal going on now in New Age areas that talks about how to attract abundance. But what are we already squandering? What do we have that we're maybe not effectively using? So the Nine of Pentacles is about releasing that energy, just like letting that bird fly free and gaining a new perspective. Are we staying in comfort zones where we don't have to be challenged? Or are we ready to venture beyond those things and to look at what we can share and offer on some other levels? So that's just some random thoughts on the Nine of Pentacles. Thank you for stopping by, and if you're curious about my work, again, I refer you to my website at trevorsense.com. I'm looking forward to a busy day this afternoon, and then a little bit of rest and relaxation this weekend, and I'm wishing everybody a wonderful time in the sunshine. Take care, and bye for now.